everyone. It's our monthly coffee and EVs. We've got a few things I know teed up to talk about. We've got some big EV charging news that's very recent that we'll be talking about, and maybe some of the ramifications of that. But before I forget, I do want to share something in case you are in that area or know someone in that area that may be interested. We are, WVEAA is partnered with Solar United Neighbors for a solar co-op for the Ohio Valley. And so they are currently building out that co-op. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
All right. So if you know anybody in the Ohio Valley that might be interested in going solar and would like to do it with a group of folks and do it with a competitive bid and get some good advice and help crafting an RFP to put out, tell them to take a look at it. And I did send out an email with a link to this recently, but just as a reminder to folks, if you're interested or know someone who might be interested, pass it along.
Yeah, I used Solar United, the co-op system to put my 24 solar panels in back in 2019.
All right, very good.
In
Well,
fact,
this
that
is their
was the
latest
fault
one.
of Marty Wyrick wanted me that we went over to the Solar United Neighbors meeting at what used to be called Charleston Civic Center, and so I'd always been interested in solar energy, and so I ended up getting solar panels that year. But I have to give Marty some credit for getting me to go to the thing.
I remember I was down at that meeting too, I believe. I think Marty and I may have been presenting.
So we've been looking to buy a new house, and one of the criteria is that that it has to have solar. We have a lot of, I want to get something that doesn't have a lot of steps in it. I'm 70 now. When I'm 85, I'm really not going to like steps if I live that long. And just tired of, I've got steps up to the front of the house. And so we've seen a bunch of properties, but either they won't take solar or they have steps or it's in a lousy location. But one property we looked at that was just a little too far out of town was being sold by a Tesla guy, and he had solar panels and already, and is pretty neat. He owned a field across the street from him, and he put the solar panels on that field across the street from him. But a little too far out of town. Who knows? Maybe Taylor even built it.
Taylor, we were just talking about the solar co-op that's going into the.
Hey guys,
yeah, we can hear you.
Me? Okay, I wasn't sure if I was
muted
on
hear us?
This by default or not. Yes, I sure can.
Okay, so we were just talking about the solar co-op that's Solar United Neighbors is working on in the Ohio Valley. So just reminding folks about that, and if you know anyone in the Ohio Valley might be interested in going solar through a co-op process, you can let them know. And Taylor, you may be interested in bidding on that whenever they do come to the end and put that out for bid.
Oh yeah. I've heard about that one. We've decided that honestly their RFP process is a little bit lengthy, and also we like to kind of focus on just a couple customers at a time. So
yeah, we got you. All right. Well, moving on to I guess the big news this past week has been, right before the holiday, was Ford making a move to the Tesla plug and the supercharger network. So I know there's been a lot of discussion online about that, and a lot of articles written. So a lot of folks, I think it was a smart move on Ford's part, just personally. If they're really wanting to make the charging experience a lot better, since that's a pain point for a lot of the CCS vehicles, depending on where you live and what you're doing with the vehicle, of course. But
like West Virginia.
yeah, like West Virginia. But I don't know. What does everybody else think about that?
I think it'll force everybody else to go to the North American charging standard. I mean, You've got Tesla, you've got Aptera, and now Ford. I think you'll see other people migrating to it.
And I do also always like to mention that of course, we're just talking about the U.S. here, but we do have other standards across the world. I mean, we know we have CCS2 in Europe, which is different than the CCS 1 that the U.S. has, and China has their own standard, the GBT, whatever it is. So we've got multiple, even within CCS, there's multiple standards. So we're still going to be in a multi-standard kind of world.
Well, CCS is just part of the J1772 standard put out by the Society of Automotive Engineers. And I think the European standards are based more on a ISO standard, International Standards Organization. So they come from different roots. And Tesla was on the SAE committee at the time the J1772 standard was being written, and they disagreed with the committee's conclusions, so they went off and did their own. Plus, the committee was moving slowly at the time, and Tesla was coming out with the Model S a year before the J1772 standard came out. So there was all kind of issues, and so Tesla went with their plug, which is nicer and easier to use and lighter. So it's a good choice for Ford.
Yeah, I think we can only hope that everyone else will follow suit. From the beginning, I've thought that this was just I always use the term insane for building, the CCS. We've got Tesla building out this fantastic supercharger network, that's exclusive for Tesla, and I thought, wow, like could we not just agree on one thing? So I think this is a fantastic move. Hopefully it leads to others.
Well,
something that I just the other day, I put windshield wipers on my truck, and I opened up the package and I had like a handful of adapters, and I'm thought, my goodness. And this was like a day after, Ford and Tesla had made this announcement. And I thought, my goodness, nobody can decide on how they want to make a yoke for a windshield wiper, but finally Ford and Tesla can decide on a charger.
Right.
But,
yeah, there's like
I think it's great.
There's 5 or 6 different adapters. I had a guy put new wipers on my Tesla, and it took him a long time because he had a hard time figuring out which adapter to use.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Monroe Live, right the day this was announced, Monroe Live did a short thing where they showed the difference between the Ford's current. So it's more than just what you see on the screen there with Robert. There's wiring in the background that going to the battery and all that. Well, the wiring for the Tesla is a solid aluminum bar. It's not copper wire, so it's cheaper, and they bend it into a certain form, and it doesn't move from that form. You don't have wires flopping around and breaking and stuff like that. So it's just a whale of a better system than anybody else came up with. I was in Findlay, Ohio, and the Tesla guy, Tyler Skaggs, who works, the only Tesla employee who lives in West Virginia, gave me an old broken cable, which I then threw away. But I believe that was made out of aluminum too. So Tesla's figured out how to do everything a lot cheaper than anybody else.
I watched one of the Monroe videos. I don't know if it was the same one, but it was like a quick overview, and they were comparing, the Tesla connector and some of the behind the scenes stuff with CCS. And one thing they did bring out, and since I'm not as familiar with CCS since I haven't used it, that the actual connector, the plug that you hold, has the lock-unlock mechanism on it.
Right.
And they said that's actually, I guess, one of the problems with CCS is if that thing becomes jammed or non-functional or broken, and since it's on the plug that you're pulling in and out of the vehicle all the time, I guess they have a tendency for them to not make good contact or whatever they need to do, and that could be, it leads to some of the charging issues that people have, where on Tesla it's the opposite. The plug doesn't have any of that stuff on it. It's all built into the port.
Yeah. The car actually has the locking mechanism that comes up and goes into a little slot in the plug handle. So looks like
Unknown has joined. I thought it might be Rick.
Hey, Rick.
Yeah, it is. I'm working on getting my picture going here.
Okay.
Okay, it's the Unknown Coffee Man.
Oh, wait a minute.
There you are.
I'm covered up, but it's okay.
We were just talking about the Ford Tesla charging thing.
Good. Love to hear about it.
But they still have the issue with the sockets are all the Ford vehicles are in the wrong place.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up.
It's going to create a lot of problems for Tesla owners, especially when you get to a congested station and the Ford guy's taking up 3 slots, 3 stalls to maneuver his car around. That's going to be a real issue.
Well, I know there's 2 pieces to this from what we've seen, or what I've read, is that first, Ford is going to make an adapter available for all the existing vehicles with CCS. So one thing I'm wondering is, will that just be like a block adapter, or will it actually maybe have like an extension of piece of cable on it or something too? Don't really know. So that might help address some of the port issues and port placement issues. So we'll have to see what they do with that. And then there's the other thing of, in 2024, 2025, they're going to actually implement the Tesla connector on the vehicles themselves. And at that point, I would think they would probably look at repositioning the port to make it work more directly, more compatible with superchargers.
Well,
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So, the other thing is that Tesla is starting to do more of those pull-through supercharging stations. So if you pull through like the Lightning F-150, it doesn't really block as much as if the traditional little parking space supercharger areas. So they may sort of start going to more pull-throughs than anything else to sort of help with things.
Yeah, that doesn't work too well in snow country. Because then you can't get a backhoe in there or a snowplow in there to clear it out. You have to clear them out by hand. So I think that'll only happen in the south and the southwest.
I don't think any superchargers in West Virginia have pull-throughs that I'm aware of.
I don't think so. A couple of them have one. Like at Weston has one pull up to,
not pull through. Yeah, I think a lot of them have that one stall off on the end. It's oriented differently so that you don't have to back in.
Yeah.
If you guys ever go to London, Kentucky, then they updated the supercharger, and they have the V3s are pull throughs and the V2s are the traditional back end.
No, I haven't been there since they updated it.
Hey, Taylor, have you seen any movement on the Ripley charger?
Ask that again. I'm sorry, it seemed to cut out.
Oh, it was a thing. Have you heard or seen anything about the Ripley supercharger?
I have not. I have not. I, s- I did see in a nearby or over at the Pizza Hut lot, and I thought maybe that was them gearing up for it, but I think I was I think Marty, as Marty confirmed, I think I was mistaken on that.
Yeah, I mean, they published it was going to be at the Sheets, but
Yeah.
I've gone in there and asked, and nobody in the store was aware of it. So it's not. And also, we stopped off in last week in Marmette and drove all around the Marmette exit, and it seems to me the only feasible place you could put it is in the Kroger's parking lot, and they've got lots of extra space. And there's no sign whatsoever of any construction going on.
I'm really surprised they actually put it there and not closer to downtown Charleston.
Well, it is handy if you're going to go off up Route 60 to New River Gorge National Park. So that maybe that's why they did it. You know, and maybe they have a hard time. You know, they're still pressed to find locations. A lot of places. They've always had a difficult time finding landlords that agree to at least part of their parking lot. So
I was in Rehoboth a couple of weeks ago. They have 2 existing superchargers on the strip, Route 1 through Rehoboth, and they're building another 12 stall right now. It was in, but it wasn't activated. So within a 4-mile stretch, you're going to have 3 superchargers with a total of 28 stalls. So lots of beach traffic over there.
There's lots of cases of that going on nowadays. Well, we have a couple, Wheeling and Morgantown.
Yeah, Morgantown.
For the life of me, I can't understand why they did that. But there's no, I never ran into congestion at either of those places. But Charleston regularly sees congestion, like on Fridays and Thursdays, and people are going on summer weekends. It's been for a couple of years that way. Anyone else had experience with congestion at the chargers?
Well, I think I put on my Facebook post that when we went to a Michigan trip, we pulled into the Electrify America Faster 350 chargers west of Columbus, and 6 of the 8 plugs, once we plugged in, 6 of the 8 plugs were filled. 3 of them were Hyundai Ioniq 5s. And then the next time there was a Volkswagen and a Lucid Air charging. Well,
you certainly get more greater variety of cars than you do at a Tesla. we either get a white one or a red one or a blue one, but they're all the same models. Though I did see a guy that had one with green stripes on it down in North Carolina one time. It was really tricked out.
There's a couple of them up here that they've done full body wraps on, so you see some interesting colors because they've just wrapped the whole car.
I thought that my free charging at Electrify America was 2 years, but it's actually 3. You can do a half an hour for free, and then you pay if you run over. But in half an hour, we filled from 10% to 90% and took off in 26 minutes. So one charge was 24 minutes, the other was 26. And then up in Michigan, we used a 60 kilowatt. And so we just went to dinner, and in the hour we were eating, it was filled.
That's great.
I don't think we've seen anything else, any other chargers in West Virginia, I mean, in superchargers or CCS recently.
Well, Ohio's gotten a lot lately. And they continue adding a lot more on I-81 through Virginia. So nearby, we're seeing quite a few.
Bristol, they opened a new one in Cumberland, Maryland, and there's one under construction at Deep Creek Lake on 68.
Yeah. The one in Cumberland's only 4 stall.
The new one, yeah, is only 4 stall.
Which is kind of weird.
The one at the Deep Creek Lake Visitor Center for CCS is a very nice one. And we've used that many times going up to Maryland.
Is that at Friendsville or?
No, Friendsville has them it's like a veterans memorial. It's not really a cemetery. It's like a veterans memorial. But sometimes we cut that corner off. Usually coming back, we just get off the interstate and go through Deep Creek Lake and then down to Elkins and across. But it's a very nice one. And you have green turtle within, 100-yard walking distance. So again, you can do a meal.
The supercharger is going in there as an 8-stall, 250 kilowatt at McHenry, Maryland. So Deep Creek Lake is going to have a lot of charging options.
Do most Teslas charge at 250 or are they a little lower, like 220? I know they put in a 250 charger, but is that tuned to what your car can take? Or
the long range models can do it. All the long range, like mine's going over 250.
Wow.
256 is the highest I've seen on my car.
It really depends on your state of charge when you pull in.
Well, but I think aren't the standard range models? I don't know that they can do 250. I don't know, John, do you have any experience with that?
I come close to it at Washington, PA. When I stop up there to charge on my way to Pittsburgh, I can't remember what the top number is, but it gets up there. It won't quite get to 250 though. But like Marty said, it depends on your state of charge.
Yeah, that's a big variable in temperature and all that.
Yeah.
And I know the older Model S and Model X vehicles, I don't know that they could do close to 200 maybe, or not even 200.
No.
170 or something like that?
No, more like 120, I think.
Yeah,
that's what they.
Some of the first
120 is about the highest I've gotten on my car. It's 2017 Model S.
Okay.
You done a lot of traveling? A lot of long distance driving?
Oh yeah, well, sort of. I guess I got 2017. We have like 153,000 miles on it.
Wow.
Doing some driving.
We've gone on a few trips.
Just a few. When I bought my 3, of course, I didn't expect there to be a pandemic and start working from home all the time. But yeah, it's only got about 40,000 on it, not quite 40,000.
Next week or in 2 weeks we're going to upstate New York, and then next spring we're planning to drive to California, and that I'm hoping that involves some trips into some places. Charging will be a real challenge in New Mexico, and I want to go to Big Bend National Park. I want to go to Carlsbad Caverns, and I'd like to go to Monument Valley in Arizona. And man, there's nothing near there. That's on a Navajo reservation. They don't really cater to EVs. But I've never. This is going to be my one big trip to the Southwest. No, we've never gone there and gone to multiple places, and I'm really looking forward to this trip.
I took mine out to Colorado to a 3D printer conference out to Loveland, and the only thing, it was an easy trip, but it just made me want a long range.
You had to stop at every supercharger, huh?
Not every supercharger. I had 16 stops out and back. I calculated with the Better Route Planner that long range would have been 10 stops each way. And the hotel I stayed at had a supercharger, an 8-stall in the parking lot.
To those of us who used to have to plug in our bolts for 2 hours to get from 10 to 80, that 20 minutes doesn't give us a whole lot of sympathy for you.
Is that in Salinas? Is that Salinas is Kansas has that supercharger in the parking in the Holiday Inn parking lot. Is that where you stayed?
No, I was in Loveland, Colorado,
Oh,
at a
okay.
Hyatt, where at my final destination. There was a huge truck stop. I mean, it was the biggest one, a charging station I stopped at, and it was, I forget how many stalls were there, but I ended up the rest of the way out to Colorado, kept running into the same two cars at every place, so which was interesting.
Were you able to
Well,
talk
couple-
to anybody? Were they friendly?
One of the couples was there was one charger, and I forget exactly where it was. It was not performing. There was 6 stalls, and it was not performing to the top speed. And even when I came back through, it was not performing up to where it was supposed to. It was a level 2, a version 2 Tesla station. So there was some kind of power issue, supply issue, or something with that station. It was in behind an Applebee's.
Well, a couple other, I guess, notes or news, just some of the things that WVEAA has been doing. So, Rick, I think you probably saw the email I sent back to the Huntington folks. Huntington is applying for a grant for chargers, fast chargers, from the DOT, federal DOT, and they asked for a letter of support.
I was sent an email as you were, and I just let you send that one. I sent one back emphasizing that, because she said, if there's any more information you want, let us know. And I said that you had written a very nice letter, and that if you needed any additional input, you'd let me know. But that I was wondering if they had any more ideas that they wanted to share with us, like where they're going to put it, how many plugs, how they're going to control it, how they're going to charge for it. It may be just, it's like a compliance car. They may just be putting to say, oh, we have 2 plugs, but they haven't thought it out, and they're in the wrong places, they're the wrong speed, and they're not going to get paid. They want to put a Pullman.
I think if the money they're asking for, I think they're just going to put out an RFP for one of the providers, ChargePoint or somebody to probably put them in and operate them.
I really appreciate you putting the thing in there about childhood asthma, because it's pretty much diesel fumes or car fumes are the number one cause of childhood asthma, and we got to clean that air up. It's just awful.
So we got that went out. We had an application to CHIPS program from the city of Parkersburg, right, Marty? Am I thinking about that right?
Parkersburg Visitors Bureau.
Parkersburg Visitors Bureau. And John, I didn't know if you were behind that or had any knowledge of that.
It's to go in the parking lot for the Blennerhassett Island Ferry, which is
that's down next to the point. Then
it's on Ann Street,
right inside.
On Ann Street, and it's about 3 blocks to Camden Clark Hospital, and 3 blocks to Market Street. So it'll be usable by more than just passengers to Blennerhassett. So I think it's a great location for Parkersburg.
Yeah, I've just been at Camden Clark Hospital twice in the last couple months. I have prostate cancer. I had an MRI up there. So I've gotten to see Camden Clark Hospital, which has now been taken over by WVU Medicine.
Right.
And Thomas Memorial, where I was born, is also being taken over by WVU Medicine, but that process has not been completed. So there's a little problem about my new urologist up in Parkersburg thought he could send orders out down to Thomas, I guess through the portal, but it turned out he had to fax the order down for me to get a PSA test. So it's interesting watching the state getting taken over by 2 or 3 hospital chains. It's moving very quickly.
Consolidation.
Yeah, it's either WVU or CMAC or is it St. Mary's in Huntington? That's going to be it. They're going to have everything.
The medical staffs at Cabell Huntington and St. Mary's joined about 2 years ago, and they sort of have divvied up what they're like. There's not going to be any more OB at elective OB at St. Mary's. It's all going to be at Cabell, which is the university teaching hospital. So they actually probably have a higher daily population than St. Mary's does by a long shot. The sleep center is at St. Mary's, and there's a couple of the radiation is out at St. Mary's. So. And talking of medical things, not to be in my bud, so I keep you informed. I have to have another procedure done to my heart. So that I don't know when that'll be, but I'll be
the same thing, the ablative thing that you had before.
Yes and no. It's not atrial fib has not come back, but I'm in atrial flutter now, which is actually worse than fib because your ventricle does try to keep up with it. In fib, the atria are going haphazard at 300, and the ventricle says, I don't care what you do, I'll just go at 60 or 70. But now my atrium's going at 100, and my ventricle says, I can keep up with that, so I'm likely to get into, I can't keep having a resting pulse of 105. If I can for the rest of my life, but it wouldn't be very long. So they're going to do what's called a flutter ablation, which is a little bit safer and has a higher, because it's only in the right heart. They don't have to poke a hole over into the left side. So it's got about a 99% success rate as opposed to 70, and the mortality rate is 0.1% instead of 1%. So
you younger folks on this call, take good care of yourself, because
that's CAFC Memorial.
Let us know. Hey, does everybody know that Kelly's retiring end of the year?
I think we mentioned it on a previous call.
We talked about maybe having a little dinner for her sometime up in where she lives, or else in Charleston at a big restaurant. We can all just have a one last dinner with her.
Yeah, there's a nice restaurant not far from where she lives, Angels or something.
And she's St. Albans, right?
Yeah, there's a nice restaurant in St. Albans right on the Coal River. It's the old Chilton House.
There's one called the Mediterranean something. Mediterranean Breeze it might be, and that's right on the Kanawha, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, that's more like a pub restaurant. But they're both good. Well, we go out there every once in a while.
Well, we'll have to see if we can. We talked about trying to do that sometime, maybe the fall. See if we could get a gathering.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Sounds like a nice idea.
So, Rick, tell us about your.
I think. Well, wait a second. John, did you have something real quick?
Kelly's not going to be able to be at the Multicultural Festival June 17th, but they are taking care of the fee for us, and they're working on getting. The festival wants to put us in a different spot, but I have no idea where that's at yet. So.
Okay.
We got that coming up on the 17th.
Yeah, and that's a good reminder. That's only we're just a little over a couple of weeks out from that.
I'm sorry, I'll be out of state when that happens.
And John, do you have a pretty good? Do you have enough people kind of committed to that, or do we need to remind some folks?
We need to remind folks. I only have one commitment, I think, right now. I'll check and see what a lot of interest. So me and one other right now. I would love to get somebody to come in with a Lightning or a Rivian and a few other vehicles. I'm going to go down and talk to Warner Kia, and hopefully they'll have a car in. They'll come up. So yeah.
Well, send something out on the list if you can, and then I'll try to also put it on Twitter and LinkedIn and a couple of places.
Well, one of the things I saw today was, and I thought I'd seen it, so I reached out to Drive Electric Dayton. They have one of the Drive Electric Association flag banners, and that's vertical. And I know I brought it up last year. I think that would be a good thing to have, because in a crowd like where we're at that festival, it sticks up and kind of gives us that notability. So we can also get one made. I don't know. I think you have to go through the National Drive Electric to get that one, because it's the Drive Electric Association, because that's the way it looks, just like their logo and everything. So, but the others I've seen $60 to $100. So it's a matter of finding one that we can get in a timely fashion for this event, if nothing else.
You might also send a note to. Did you see the note that Dr. Ping Chen sent out to the group?
Yeah.
And he came up to Rick's event in Marshall, right?
Yep.
Right,
With
and
his
they brought
F-150.
an F-150 Lightning and
Yeah.
another vehicle. So that doesn't mean they'll be available, but if they're trying to hit places in West Virginia and Appalachia with the vehicles, so it would be worth reaching out and just seeing if they're available.
Okay, Fast Sign has one here for single-sided printing for $156 if you print on double side. It's $240. It's 10 foot tall, shaped like a feather.
I found some on Amazon that were cheaper than that.
Okay. I was just saying, Fast Sign, you can usually probably get them. Okay. Why don't you go ahead and get it, and we'll just, we got 3 board members here. We can probably just go ahead and we'll have Scott pay it. What do you think, Robert?
Yeah, I mean, if we can get it, go ahead and do it, and then that way we could pass it around for different events if we needed it to.
Okay.
And if you need logos or high-res stuff or whatever, I mean, I can send it to you.
Yeah, pass the design that you settle on through Robert, would you? So he's happy with it.
Not a problem. I was going to ask somebody for help with that, because I've been busy, extremely busy with work. I'm working overtime, and because we're short-staffed, so I just did 12 hours today.
Yeah, I worked yesterday.
Hey, John, I'll try to get my cousin David to show up for that festival. I just texted you there. Just keep on prodding me about it. I've got a lot going on, but I will try to get him, and maybe me and him. Hopefully, me and him both will go. So because he just got a Model X that's wrapped and looks
that'd
really
be
sharp.
awesome.
So,
those Falcon Wing doors are a crowd magnet.
Yeah, you got to do that dance though at the Siberian Orchestra.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's a pretty neat ride. I just checked it out for the first time there yesterday. He's had it for a couple months actually, but we got together there yesterday, and it's pretty cool.
And John, I just forwarded you the email that Ping and Chen sent out, so you've got that. And he mentions what they're trying to do and the vehicles that they're bringing around. So check that out.
Okay, will do.
So I guess we should, for Pingham, we should give him the contact of Paul Redford, because Paul still needs a source of funding for putting chargers at the rest of state parks. And that would.
Well, I know they were. Kelly was supposed to be having a little drive around West Virginia, visit with him in the near future, and they were looking at some different sites in West Virginia, different towns that might benefit. Like Elkins was on the list as possibly a fast charger and level 2 in Elkins. That's just one possibility. But Kelly could probably. She was putting together a list. So if we can get. Probably Kelly could get him connected into parks.
Okay. Yeah, because the parks are pretty well distributed around the state, and they're good places people go, and even when they're traveling through to get a charge.
So would this be to expand the chargers at the existing locations that have chargers, or would it be to go to new parks?
Yes, both.
Both. Okay.
Yeah. So Kelly said there's some movement underway, but this mean guy could fund some of that. It sounds like to me.
Yeah, they've got money, and they do intend to do that.
And we saw, I don't know if you saw this, it was just on Facebook, Robert, the Ford dealer in Elkins has put in a level 2 destination charger only for Ford customers. But they told whoever charged there, I forget his name, he said they told him they were going to put in 6 fast chargers.
Wow.
And by the end of next year, and I'm going, yeah, wait till he finds out how much it costs.
Well, I'll almost bet you they think 19.2 kilowatt AC chargers are fast chargers.
And theirs is even above that. Theirs is above the standard level of 19.2. Theirs is one of the 21.5.
Right. So, but it's not going to be. I doubt they meant
still
DC fast charge.
Well, DC. Well, 24 kilowatts is not DC fast charge. We should stop calling it 24 kilowatt.
Yeah.
We got to make a term DC slow charge and put the 40s and the 24s and the 50s in there and keep.
And it's a long walk from that Ford dealer to any of the restaurants and services in Elkins.
Wow.
Well, I mean, when Kelly and I were talking, I mean, Elkins is a good choice, but it needs to be located like at the train depot, in that area where you've got folks coming in and spending some time there.
Haven't we gone round and round with the train depot? And
we did, and I forwarded her those contacts that we'd had previously with Elkins and some of the folks in Elkins that were on the Chamber of Commerce, I believe. So I gave her those contacts and said, hey, we've already had some preliminary discussions and it just never really went anywhere. So, maybe we can get some more movement if there's more interest in doing it and they can get some funding to help get it done.
Yeah, I think that we've probably seen close to the last of the chip-funded charging. With all this stuff coming down the line the next couple of years, chip probably will find other things to spend its money on. But it's been great, the ones he's put in.
That's right. Very appreciated.
Hey, Marty, were you and Chip responsible for the one in Fayetteville at the library?
Yes.
I wanted to personally thank you for that. Me and the kids had a great weekend there just this past weekend. We went there and charged, topped up to, I think, around like almost 80% again. Then we went and hiked around the New River Gorge Bridge, of course, and then we went back and had lunch and charged, and then we walked over and had lunch. So, that was a really great place. It cost $5 in the donation box. I thought that was nice.
Oh, they put up the donation box? That's great.
Yeah.
I was pushing them to do that, and they couldn't decide whether to do it or not. I'm glad to hear they put it up.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I mean, that's the least that somebody could do.
Yeah,
so, and Marlinton did that, and it's worked out pretty well for them. And I know the Shepherdstown Library public was taking donations, and I think that's working out pretty well. So, I mean, that model seems like it's working out okay.
Yeah.
Do they have a sign with it or anything? Maybe you take a picture of the sign.
Ooh, I did take some pictures, but I think just, for my check-in, I think it was probably at a distance, and I think that pedestal was probably behind the car at that time. So,
okay.
Yeah, I don't think I got a picture of that specifically.
But
But yeah, it was a good experience. It charge was, I think it was like 243 volts. Then the next time we came back, there was a Kia Niro.
Mm-hmm.
Niro. And I think the voltage was like 237. So yeah, it was good.
So
Yeah.
all these fast chargers, you're not talking about the level 2 things.
No,
right?
these are level 2s. So that's what we're talking about.
Oh yeah,
It's an AC charger.
It was a 32 amp. I think an HCS 40. I think is what it was. It was a pair. It was a pair of them on a pedestal, tied to a standalone electrical service. Yeah.
Yeah, they ran a separate circuit so they could keep track of it. There was a huge debate over who was going to pay for it and how I was going to pay. And I said, put up a donation box. You'll be surprised how many people will put money in it.
Yeah.
And
actually, hey, I'll see if I can zoom in on that. I actually do have a picture of the donation box, but it is at a distance. But
okay.
I will. I'll forward that on to you in the email group there.
Okay. Yeah, well, I still go up there pretty frequently. Last time I was up there in charge there was in March, so in the March.
Mm-hmm.
But that's great. I've noticed they at least by March they had not seen a lot of electricity use because you can read the meter there, and they'd only sold a couple hundred kilowatt hours. But I bet you it's as summer comes along, it'll get used a lot more.
I think so. Yeah, I was honestly, I was not terribly surprised, but I was a little bit surprised that there was, someone there whenever we came back. I thought, hey, at least it's serving a purpose. Yeah, I was glad to see that.
And it's pretty interesting. Fayetteville is doing a lot. The city of Fayetteville, the town manager there is a really impressive guy. And they're the old high school, which is right catty corner to that charger, that's being converted into apartment buildings for people working, for summer workers.
Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah.
Yeah, because you got all the transient folks coming in to work the river and work for the park, and there's no housing available in Fayette County. It's really tight up there, so it's going to be something like 20 apartments. That's really going to help out the whole area.
Yeah, well, it sounds like they're kind of getting ahead of the curve. I know so Fayetteville's a bit of a tourist destination, and many tourist destinations around the country. There's no place for people to actually live. So that sounds great that they're doing that. It's great.
All right. Well, we're about 10 to 8. So any last minute items or other items to discuss?
Well, I'd like Rick to tell us something about how his thing out there in Barboursville Mall.
Well, the Bob Evans thing it turned out nice, but thanks to a red light where I stopped on the way there next to Curtis and Cassie Conley. And I said, are you going to Bob Evans? And they said, to eat? I said, no, for the they knew nothing about it, even though I'd sent it all out, but they did show up. So Marcy came and they came, and a man that I met the night before at Arby's, who's an 87-year-old carver of carousel horses, he came and had a lot of good questions. So the people that came had good questions. And so that was not, we won't do that again. That was just a one-off thing. The other thing I wanted to mention to you all is as a citizen and not as a member of WVEAA, a delegate to West Virginia, delegate named Howell, wrote a terrible article about EVs in the Cumberland Times News. And my brother-in-law lives in Kaiser, Mineral County, so he's the delegate for that. And he brought it to my attention. He said, let's write a letter back. So we wrote a rebuttal letter, sent it in Friday. But what we did do is we put the statement that he had and then why it was wrong, the statement that he made, why it was wrong. But it put us over their word count of 700. So I've taken all of his out and just incorporated that into my first sentence of our paragraph. And we're down to 600 words, so we can add one more paragraph. But the the Cumberland Times News is going to publish it and probably be later this week.
Are you referring to Delegate Gary Howell?
Yeah.
Okay.
He owns an auto parts store.
Yes. He was also the head of the redistricting committee for the House of Delegates when I was submitting my plans. So I am familiar with him.
The other thing I wanted to mention very briefly is, we're trying to think about people in apartment complexes having chargers that they share. And that actually makes sense for some really smaller communities. So I know some of the people in Hillsborough, and I called the head librarian there today, and the mayor's name is Ann Walker, and I'm going to be sending her an email. But a little tiny community like that, where there's only 426 residents, but they all live within walking distance of the post office. And so that makes sense for them to put in like a bank of 4 chargers or 6 chargers, AC with a couple plugs, and then have people who are residents come and put in a code, and they can then charge for free. But people traveling through, now it's only 12 miles south of Marlinton. So are you going to get that many people? I don't know. They have one gas station, and we're going to offer it to them to put it in so that as their gas business goes down, their electric business can go up. But we need innovative solutions for these real little tiny towns in West Virginia, because everybody in the town can't buy their own home charger. So that we need to work on that kind of apartment complex mentality for a small town. So I'm going to be talking to the people in Hillsborough over the next few weeks. And then in the month.
Along those lines, Rick, there's a neat community up here in Shepherdstown called Shepherd Village that has they're a co-housing community, but they put in shared EV chargers, and they also have a shared solar installation on their community center. So they have shared solar, shared EV chargers, and all that's built into the community itself and shared by all the folks in the community and or their visitors to the community.
That's in Shepherdstown, right?
Shepherdstown, yeah. So it's a really interesting, neat setup. The only one like that I've seen in West Virginia.
The people at Hillsborough may want to talk to the people up there, see if they get any ideas.
Yeah, that might be an idea.
So, Rick, will you be sure to publish that letter on our Facebook page and to the email list?
I'm pretty sure I'm allowed to. I don't think they copyright it when you send it to the editor. I don't know if I need their permission to publish it elsewhere or not. I can't do it until after they've put it in the paper. But and it's it's pretty basic stuff that we all know.
Is the paper online? I mean, will they publish it online?
Yeah, I think it was a Cumberland Times -News, Cumberland, Maryland, and he published his on the 16th of May. It's called "Why EVs Are Not a Good Fit for West Virginians."
I know, Mr. Howell, as I said, and that's.
I went to the barber shop today, and one of the guys there said, "Oh, I don't like those EVs. They're ruining the coal miners." I said, "Wait a minute, 90.8% of electricity in West Virginia, by the statistics that I looked up last week for the letter, is from coal. And every time you buy an EV, you're putting a coal miner back to work." So he had totally thought that it was putting coal miners out of business, and he was against that.
In the corollary to that, every time you pump gas, you're putting a coal miner out of work, and you're putting somebody in Saudi Arabia to work.
Well, I don't know why they're putting a coal miner out of work when they buy gasoline for their car.
Well, versus an EV.
Oh, yeah, versus an EV. That's true. But it's not done from coal at all. But I think his approach was also, you guys are a bunch of tree huggers, and if you want to bring in the clean, you're also going to bring in solar and wind, and that will hurt the coal industry. So I think that he was lumping us with them and not saying that coal was burned to make electricity in West Virginia.
Well, he needs to be more concerned about natural gas, because that's what's killing coal.
Yep, so that's the war on coal.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of also, obviously.
Solar and wind have been doing a good job the last
They've been
couple
doing
years.
a good job, but I mean, by and large, natural gas is now the largest source of electricity in the country.
Yeah.
Hoppy Kirchhoff has made that point. The eminent voice of the racing stations, and he's pointed that out too. So it's kind of funny to hear all this stuff about the so-called war on coal.
Yeah, Rick, I'll send you a link to that Shepherd Village community, and Steve Bartlett, who's also in our group, he's a member and he lives there and he helped set all that up. So we've got some folks. If you needed a contact there, Steve Bartlett's a good contact.
By the way, there's no copyright infringement. If you put a letter to the editor, I've sent them out. I'm used to sending out letters to the editor all over the state. I mean, I used to do on Apple IIe, which was one by, but of course now you can do it all by electronically. But a number of papers like the Charleston Gazette Mail did not want you to. They don't want to see it in another newspaper first, so they won't print it. But once it's printed, then there's no problem with your letter.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying. Once it's printed, I'll put it on the. Or maybe what I'll do is send it to Robert and see if he thinks it's worth posting on the Google group.
Oh, I think it is.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. The fact is, if you let us know on the 16th when it came out, we'd probably send out 2 or 3 letters.
My wife is a real bugaboo as a librarian, about knowing the statistics. If I told her, that I heard from the EVA that more than 50% of Americans are considering an EV for their next vehicle. And she said, you got to be able to prove that statistic by a non-EV group. So you can't use any of the EV websites like State of Charge or that, because they're biased towards EVs. You have to have a neutral, and then if you can't find that's why we found that statistic. There's 8 states in the United States that get more than 50% of their electricity from coal. West Virginia is the highest. And then you get down to number 9 and they're below 50. But like Marty said, that it's being replaced more by natural gas than it is by solar. But she made me and we know it's 90.8 because of the last published governmental figures. So, but she just didn't want anything in this letter that I was just saying, because you and I would say, everybody knows that. She said, they don't all know that, and they're not going to believe it because you're pro EV. What did you call me, a zealot?
That's pretty bad when your wife thinks you're a zealot.
I consider it a compliment.
Zealots were pretty good guys, back in the Bible.
On Saturday at Bob Evans, Mike Beam came over at the end as we were folding up the canopy and putting everything away. I met Larry at Hurricane, and he gave me the canopy and the signs. I put them up, and it did draw some people. We had probably, I'd say, 12 or 14 people came by, but they had very good questions. That's very different over the last 6 years. They know which questions to ask. In fact, one of the couples there, they're going to go out and buy a Kia. They were so impressed with Marcy's, they want to buy an EV6 as their next car.
What kind of questions were they asking?
Well, they wanted to know. They didn't say, well, how long does it take to charge it? It was more like, well, tell us about how do you charge it? What are the different ways that we can do that? And tell me about where do you find the chargers, when you take a trip? Well, people didn't even know to ask that a few years ago. They thought you had to do it all at home. Well, what about if you're trying to drive to Morgantown? What do you do? I said, well, there's 41,000 chargers in the United States. That includes the AC chargers, though. That's not just DC. But yeah, they had pretty good questions. Mileage and how do you plan a trip? Marcy was talking to them a lot about the panel that she put in, the sub panel in her electrical box, and she chose which circuits she wants if she has to run it by the car. And then she has a plug that plugs into the J port, and the other one is a generator round lock-in receptacle. And then she flips a switch, and then she just runs those things off of her car. She doesn't have to do any extension cords or watt measuring or anything like that.
Wow.
And she did it for just $300 or something from an electrician, which is a pretty good deal.
Elon Musk was asked that question at a recent stockholders event. When are you going to make that? And he says that's a dumb idea, because if you leave the house, then if you have to go somewhere, then all your electricity goes off. And so he doesn't understand that at all. He doesn't understand why.
Well, I mean, vehicle to grid is one thing, like trying to use your vehicle's battery to contribute to the grid, but using it for emergency power on rare occasions is a different animal.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But you still need that functionality, and I think that other manufacturers will force Tesla into.
Yeah, I think they'll do it.
Time.
We went to my mother-in-law's to do some gardening, weeding and putting in some plants, and it was just hot as blazes. So I took the car, the extension cord, and a fan, and I set up the fan out in the front yard and ran it from the car. And my wife was able to dig weeds with a breeze blowing on her in 82-degree heat.
And real quick about the event up here, I think I sent out the pictures to that, so you guys saw that. We had a good turnout with a number of cars, and one of the guys in my class went out and bought an Ioniq 5 afterwards. So
Cool.
sold one EV at least. It's made to convince somebody. And he came out to the event, so that was nice.
Let me ask John and others, if I want to drive from Huntington to Parkersburg, do you recommend the river route through Ohio, or would you go to Charleston, get 77 and just come up that way?
No, I wouldn't go that way. Go up Old Route 2. Yeah,
it's actually faster to go the other way, but it's shorter to go.
Or take Route 2 to Ravenswood. Depends on where you're going in Parkersburg. But if you take Route 2 to Ravenswood, go 2 miles away from the river and get on I-77 at Silverton, and then go up to Parkersburg, and you get catch all the western exits that way. But if you're going like to straight downtown, it's faster to continue on up Route 2. Or whatever its number is these days. They changed the number.
Oh, do they? Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't go through Ohio because you run into a lot more traffic going through the Ohio towns.
All right,
guys. Well, we're right at 8, so we will thank everyone for coming out. Appreciate it. And then we will see you the end of June.
Hey, it's good to see everybody.
And you all.
Yeah,
Thanks, everyone.
Keep that Model S on the road there.
All right. Take care.